My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today I'm going to show you 3 albums that Paul McCartney loves. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Well, Paul mentioned these records in an interview with Tim Minchin a couple of years ago, and we selected what he said about those records and some interesting stuff about them. And the first one is Rubber Soul, released by the Beatles in 1965. And this album, for example, had famous tracks. It was the Beatles' 6th album. There were tracks like Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, Think for Yourself, I'm Looking Through You, and In My Life. This is just some of them. It's an amazing album. And in an interview that appeared in the Beatles anthology, McCartney talked a little bit about that record, and this is what he said. Things were changing. The direction was moving away from the poppy stuff like Thank You Girl, From Me to You, and She Loves You. We'd come to a point where we thought, we've done that. Now we can branch out into songs that are more surreal, a little more entertaining. And other people were starting to arrive on the scene who were influential. Dylan was influencing us quite heavily at that point. So this is what he said about Rubber Soul, and Rubber Soul was a #1 hit as a record, as an album, in several countries like the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. And let's move to the second one, which is the Beatles' best-selling album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, released in 1967. An album that a lot of people said that helped to create progressive rock music alongside The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Pink Floyd's first album. And both of these records were recorded almost at the same time at Abbey Road Studios in London. They were really, talking to each other, going to hear what one another was working on, and it's just surreal. 2 albums made at the same time in the same place are credited as the biggest influences for progressive rock movement. And this album, there's a curious story that I already did a video about this that you can watch here, about how McCartney came up with the name Sgt. Pepper. And this is the story he told Howard Stern a couple of years ago, and this is what he said. I was listening to a lot of kind of offbeat music, crazy stuff like John Cage. I was coming on the plane with our roadie. He said, "Pass the salt and pepper." And I thought he said Sgt. Pepper. The whole concept was for us to pretend to be someone else. So that's why the uniforms. It was a way to remove ourselves from just being Beatles and not be fed up with being musicians. It allowed us to do crazier things than we might otherwise have done. I wasn't me. I was this guy in another group. It was freeing. So this is what he said about the record, which is a fantastic experience, to hear all the album. But if you want to hear, standalone songs, you could hear, for example, With a Little Help from My Friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Getting Better, and A Day in Life. All amazing Beatles tracks. The album also picked on #1 at several countries, and is their best-selling album. It sold an estimated amount of more than 32 million records worldwide. This is much more than most of the artists out there have sold during their entire careers, for example. And let's go to the third one, the final one, which is a solo album, because it was actually with the Wings, the band he created after the Beatles' end. And it is Band on the Run, released in 1973. A fantastic album. Most of the songs from this album he still plays to this day during his solo records. For example, obviously the title track, also Jet, Let Me Roll With It, and 1985. I had the chance to see him playing these tracks a couple of years ago, and it's just mind-blowing, even better when he's playing live. In an interview on his website for the 50th anniversary of the album, so in 2023, he talked about the record, and this is what he said. Those kind of things, album titles and artwork, normally come later on in the process. I just wrote a bunch of songs, which luckily I remembered because the demos got stolen. Band on the Run was always going to be the big epic track on the album, but I didn't necessarily knew it was going to be the title. But eventually comes to the surface and I thought, well, that's an obvious title. That's the one. So this is what he said, and this record also picked a #1 in several countries at the time. And to this day, I believe is Paul's best known album. I think Band on the Run is probably his definitive album, solo album, let's say, or the Wings album. And these are all 3 great records. If you haven't listened to them from start to bottom, you should definitely do that. You know, when you go to the gym, or you're gonna drive, or you're gonna take a long walk, put it on, listen to these 3 albums, all the tracks, you know, chronologically, and do it. They're 3 albums are an amazing experience to listen to the complete records. And that's it. If you want to read more, go to description, visit the article I wrote about it, visit rockandrollgarage.com. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and leave your comment. Thank you for watching, and I see you later.